In the newsroom. Yes, it's time for the debate, and the news is Nicolas Sarkozy is back. On its front cover, Le Monde asks if the former French president can save his conservative UMP party from implosion. Sarkozy himself has not spoken to French media since his defeat back in May. This Monday, though, he flew back from a paid speaking engagement in China to meet with his former prime minister, François Picard, who at first lost the party chairmanship by 48 votes, and who's tried to send in bailiffs to oversee a bitter recount with his rival, the incumbent party leader on your right there, Jean-François Copé, who, according to a second recount, won by 948 votes. Now, this very French battle of egos is huge, but it goes beyond personalities. Copé's followed Sarkozy's populist push for votes towards the far right, while Fillon has flat out rejected any compromise or deals with the National Front. The far-right leader, who won a record 18% of the vote in the presidential election, has been quick to call this the death knell of the UMP. Would a breakup really bolster the far-right standing within an opposition divided over immigration and also divided over Europe? Today in the France 24 debate, is it party over for the French right? And with us to talk about it, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet of Le Plus, the Nouvel Observateur's interactive website. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
Welcome as well to Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, columnist for the Sunday Telegraph, Greg Viscusi of Bloomberg News, and Chris Bickerton, who teaches at the prestigious political science institute Sciences Po, the France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook, and you have, and also on Twitter, our hashtag debate. Let's start with the very latest. Jean-François Copé proclaimed the winner on appeal, the margin jumping from 48 to 952 votes. Disclaimer, though, the Oversight Committee is led by his sympathizers. Now, here's what the re-elected party chair, after this evening, he had said he was magnanimous in his, quote, victory. Earlier in the day, though, he wasn't pulling any punches.
When fraud has been committed by an infinitely small part of the electorate, we're not going to get everybody to vote again.
All right, that's not how his rival sees it. François Fillon putting out a communiqué to denounce what he calls a coup de force, a violent takeover, echoing accusations made already last week.
A political party is not a mafia. A political party is not a place where one can stifle scandals, refuse to tell the truth.
So there you have it. Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, it's quite amazing that they're really hanging out their dirty laundry in public here. And it's been going on, by the way, for what, 10, 15 days now?
Yeah, it's a new thing in French politics. We have everything in the open, out in the open. It's due to this new news treatment we have from the medias, and it's combining Twitter with the new TV channels, 24-hour news channels. It's a very new thing. Everything is said, everything is out in the open, and we know everything in the even silliest details about this situation. And everybody is talking from his own point of view.
Does that mean they're internet savvy, or does it mean they're very, very bad at using the internet?
The problem, they have access to the internet, but they don't know how to use it. That's the problem. They don't know how to use it. It's very new for them, and they just rush into it without any thinking, without any prior thinking about it.
And Elisabeth Moutet, what happened to the smoke-filled backroom where political party leaders were always decided in the past?
I think they still exist and they still will exist, but every now and then the parties try to sell us something that very obviously isn't true, such as, we want democracy and we can do it and we have democratic instances. And then they give the spectacle because they have no experience. I think this is actually a one-off. I don't think it's going to be ever as bad as this. First of all, because you had this sort of unique configuration in which you had two influences that were basically equal, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who won, it was 50-50. But the other thing is, next they will find a different, glossier way of not showing their divisions. And I think they will always be divided because that's the nature of politics. And it's also the nature specifically of French parties, especially when there isn't that much ideology to go by. And we are in an era where whether the Socialist Party or the UMP, the Gaullist Party, or the sometimes Gaullist Party, it's not about political ideology, it's not about great ideas, it's not about great changes to bring to society, so it's all about personalities.
All about personalities.
There were differences between Fillon and Copé, for sure. They certainly take different lines within the party. One is certainly geared more towards picking up votes on the left, Copé. Fillon's much more geared towards picking up votes in the center. So I wouldn't say it's just personality. I think there are issues
But it's
here
picking
about
up
the
votes.
future of the UMP.
I think it's posturous. I think at the end of the day, if they put them, one of them becomes, who knows, president of the Republic, and they have to tackle a problem, do you think there will be a huge difference between what Fillon would do and what Copé would do? Considering that both of them are, I'm not sure both of them are ENA graduates, but they're basically part of the French technocratic structure. I think there's no real
Fillon
difference.
is not an ENA graduate.
No, this
Jean-François
is true.
Copé is.
But they certainly have different visions as to which direction the UMP party should take.
All right,
I don't think it's ideology based. I think it's tactics based.
Yeah, I think it's tactics.
Yeah, that's possible.
Only tactics.
True.
Chris Bickerton, so this has absolutely nothing to do with ideology?
No, I think what's certainly not new is the idea that politicians are chasing votes. What's not new either is that the French right is divided and fragmented. All of these things are certainly true. They've been the case for quite a while. But there's no reason why that should imply and lead to the degree of viciousness that we've seen in the debates, the sheer lack of discipline that the party has demonstrated and that its different leading figures have demonstrated. Now, I would disagree with the idea that this is driven simply by technological change. The internet is there, social media exists. That doesn't then lead automatically to the kind of disarray that we've seen within the UMP party. So I think there's something else going on. And the extent to which the party's statutes have been politicized, the idea that Fillon would publicly denounce the UMP as being some kind of mafia, I mean, that is unprecedented in the attack on the basic party structure. So something
Is that the
going
kiss
on
of
there.
death for the party?
No, I think what it really reflects is that for some time now, the French right has been kept together by personalities, more than by a set of binding ideas.
It's always the case in political parties anyway.
Well,
This new thing about telling everything to the social networks and telling everything on Twitter is very new, and you have these cameras focusing on the actors of this drama all the time, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, even late in the night. This is very new, and they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to react. They are feeding the monster, and they are eaten by it at the end of the day.
it's true, but I think nothing obliges them to engage with each other in the way that they have been doing. I think what we see is that there's a definite separation between the little world that is on Rue Vaugirard, which is about the party, its internal battles. The politicians are essentially addressing
Yeah,
themselves.
I agree with that. They don't talk to the French people. They talk to themselves and to the medias.
That's
and
right.
It's a circle.
And we are here as spectators watching this drama, and it has a soap opera quality to it. But the basic fact, I think, is that the balance between ideas and personalities for some time now has been tipped towards personalities.
All right. So speaking of these personalities, you've got on the one hand, Jean-François Copé, who's the outgoing party chair, says he's won that very tight battle. The former prime minister, François Fillon. And then there's the former president, Nicolas Sarkozy, called to the rescue late Sunday when the mediation effort of UMP co-founder, the former prime minister Alain Juppé, failed.
I used to think that the former president should steer clear of partisan squabbling. Now it appears clearly that he is the only person who has sufficient authority to propose a way out of this, which for the moment I can't see. So can Nicolas Sarkozy calm the situation down and get the two back to the table to find a solution? It is for Sarkozy to decide.
Gregory Viscusi, there was a lunch this Monday. We've had a bit of spin that's leaked out of it, but little more between the former president and his former prime minister, François Fillon. Did he do the right thing, Nicolas Sarkozy, by weighing in on this, by trying to play mediator?
I think he doesn't really have a choice. There was a kind of a popular call for him to come back from the backers of the UMP, and he's not entered in favoring one or the other, at least officially. Yes, okay, he had lunch with Fillon, where he's only spoke by phone with Copé. So I suppose the criminologist will try to figure out some kind of meaning.
Is it to talk him off the ledge, though?
I think he's probably just trying to see if there's any grounds for the two of them to agree on some sort of vote counting process that both of them trust, which I think is what Alain Juppé was trying to do and failed to get. So I don't think Sarkozy had much hope. I mean, had much chance. I think there was such a call for him to come back and try to put together the party that was his after all.
is responsible of that situation. Sarkozy's strategy has always been to push the weakest of the two opponents, to push him up in order to have this equilibrium between Fillon and Copé, in order to be the possible candidate for 2017.
All right,
so he's partly responsible for it.
So over the years, he's fenced a little bit with both of these candidates, but did he have to, as Greg was saying, did he have to come and weigh in on this?
I think he had to, because at this stage he could not be making a fee-paying conference in Beijing and have the party disintegrate. So that was bad too. He looked bad. He will look bad whatever happens, except, unless suddenly that sweetness and light and they decide to have a triumvirate running the party, and this is not going to happen. And it's a really difficult situation for him, because there's a great deal to lose in terms of image, in terms of the fact that he was staying on those Olympian heights and waiting to come back into French political life for at least a couple of years. And now he's been dragged back in. And if it's a failure, it's a bit like the beginning of his sort of national political career, when he was the young mayor of Neuilly, and there was a situation in a primary school in Neuilly, and there was this man who called himself Human Bomb. And the young Sarkozy walked into the school alone and brought back some of the kids and talked with the man until the situation was actually finished by the police shooting the guy.
Doesn't want to release the UMP for a moment.
I'm pretty sure Copé wants to keep the UMP hostage, and we don't want to see at one stage the GIGN shooting him in the head. But to Sarkozy, it's a question: is this something that's going to sort of damage his brand for quite some time, or will he manage to sort of have them save face? Has he learned anything in Beijing that would help him make achieve this miracle?
There's a bit of context that I think the viewer should know. Last week, a poll found that 52% of UMP party sympathizers wanted Nicolas Sarkozy back as their candidate in 2017. Now, that's way ahead of either Copé or Fillon. That's why French daily Le Parisien shows Sarkozy here saying, what if we redid the vote with me as the only candidate? And Alain Juppé answering, Nicolas, you're complicating manners. Sarkozy's made it quite clear he'd enjoy a long sabbatical, as Anne-Elisabeth was saying, before any return to politics, with lucrative speaking engagements in places like Moscow, where he took time out for a photo op with an old friend, as you can see here. The fact that he was in Bordeaux, though, last week for questioning over large wads of cash in the run-up to his successful 2007 presidential campaign, leaving, and this is quite puzzling, leaving most French political observers unfazed in all of this. Chris Bickerton, most of them saying, oh yeah, he was questioned by an investigating magistrate, but he can come back if he wants to.
Well, I think we can be
It's not a big deal, the fact that he's being questioned over...
Well, the fact that the person who was brought in this case Alain Juppé, as the paragon of virtue to oversee the disputes between Copé and Fillon, was himself somebody who'd taken the rap for deep political corruption in French political life. And many say that he took the rap.
So the French are just unfazed by it?
No, I think it's that, these people go through procedures. Either they are seen as guilty and they accept that judgment, or in the case of Sarkozy, he's maintained his innocence. But I think we can be too cynical about the role that Nicolas Sarkozy is playing here. He was put in a position where there was not that many alternatives to him wading in. And at the same time, it's his political legacy that's at stake. I mean, he was president of the country. He's identified with this particular political family. The idea that he would just watch as the whole thing crumbled, which was a real indictment of his ability to build lasting ties between individuals. So it's totally unsurprising, I think, that he wades in and tries to somehow find some arrangement. I think he's not necessarily done it cynically. I think he genuinely feels that his legacy is at stake.
Can the UMP survive without Sarkozy? The UMP is like Frankenstein's creature. He has put together some very different things from the French right. He has put them together. Can it survive without him?
Yeah, I think we should point out to viewers that the UMP is not a real traditional party like the socialists or like the Tories in
It's
Britain.
a hybrid of centrists and Gaults.
It's only existed for 10 years, and it was created as an electoral platform for Chirac that was then taken over by Sarkozy.
The RPR was also created of all sorts of bits and pieces, and then the RP and then the one that went after that.
Sarkozy has twisted these pieces in his very own.
No, but it's not the
way.
But it's not the
He has done
Socialist Party. The
something
Socialist
very
Party's been
different
around
with
for
the UMP.
Socialist Party's been around for over 100 years. It's got local
And
branches.
it is known
It's got
by
local
the absence
bodies.
of debate and sometimes
No,
infighting.
of course there's debate. Of course there's debate, but it has its own structure that is independent from its leaders. The UMP does not have any existence independent from its
it's a
leaders.
Gaullist party. It is the party of the
Not
leader.
anymore,
by
not
definition.
anymore. No.
Well, it's not
Sarkozy has-
but the tradition that the
Sarkozy has
leader is a
pushed the
strong
UMP
leader.
through the right side, and now we have seen that the motion, I don't know how to say it in English, but the motion.
The movement.
The movement, the most on the right, as the movement who won in this election, ideologically it won.
Yes, but you had the Gaullists to
Let me ask
you
Chris.
had-
Let me ask Chris
the
Bickerton
Gaullists
about
have
this.
lost.
In the
They have
United
lost this
States, Republicans and Democrats have existed since the 19th century. In fact, I think for Democrats, in fact, the 18th century. In Britain, the Tories and Labour, they've existed since a long time. In Germany, same thing. Why is it that in France, even the Socialist Party hasn't, in its current form, hasn't existed since 1972 only?
No, I think it's misleading to give the impression that France doesn't have established political traditions. It certainly does. Now, on the French right, there was a Gaullist movement that was built on the figure of General de Gaulle that was striking in its ability to bring disparate elements of French society together.
Cross-class.
De Gaulle was able to mobilize a good proportion of the French working class, for example. Now, the legacy of the French right, and this is, I think, the context for today, is that for a long time now it's been essentially divided between a rump Gaullist component and then this other part that's tended towards the centre. Occasionally that was mobilised enough to actually win presidential elections, as we saw with Giscard d'Estaing. But for the last 20 years or so, we've been in a situation where that rump Gaullist part of the party has had to define itself differently, accommodate different parts of French society. And the context today is that there is a strong far right in France, and that I think is defining more than anything else the trajectory of the centre French right party.
Strong far right. Not everybody out there misses Nicolas Sarkozy. We got a tweet from Takunda, who says the UMP has failed to adapt to the 21st century. Sarkozy was part of that rot, pandering to the far right for votes. #pathetic. In The Independent, correspondent John Litchfield writes this Monday, the dispute is partly about ambition and personal loathing, but is also a struggle for the soul of a French centre-right, which has been left wandering in the moral wilderness by the defeat of Sarkozyism and the resurgence of a cosmetically cleaned up, but still xenophobic, National Front. Anne-Elisabeth Moutet.
Well, we can thank François Mitterrand, the socialist president, who created the National Front out of practically nothing when he gave enough time for proportional representation
And
to create
Elizabeth, that was in the 80s. We can't forget about that now.
No, but it's interesting that this is what became eventually of this newly refreshed far right. It had to start in the 80s and even more now today. I think Mitterrand was cynical,
right, so
but
that's where the far right comes from. We're going to
but
pick
you
up.
could not be far right in France because of France's past. For a long time, we didn't have a very strong far right because these people had been collaborators.
We're going to pick up on where the far right weighs in on all this when we come back. It's the France 24 debate.